Anyway, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really interesting article.
Yeah, it's by Krishanda Smith called Redefining Success in Italy.
And our plan is really to pull out the key stuff from her story, her personal journey.
Right. She moves to Italy, and it just completely flips her perspective on, productivity, rest, what success even means.
It's this amazing collision, isn't it? You've got this very American value, constant busyness, always doing.
That drive, yeah.
And you drop it into a culture that really values slowing down.
And we want to explore how that clash, well, it didn't just challenge her thinking. It fundamentally shifted things for her.
So let's start with the background. Krishanda, she's American, moved over about 11 years ago, back in 2014.
With her husband and kids.
And it wasn't just Italy, but where in Italy?
Right. Initially Rome, big city.
Yeah.
But then they moved south.
No, Mormano, tiny place, right? Like in the mountains.
Yeah, less than 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So that shift itself from a major capital to this really small town, that's key to her whole experience.
And she's really honest about how she felt at first in Mormano. That slower pace, it made her uncomfortable.
Deeply unsettling is how she puts it. Seeing people just hanging out.
Socializing for hours on end. She just didn't get it. It felt, wrong to her somehow.
Well, yeah, because her whole life had programmed her differently. She talks about getting her first job at 14.
Right.
And learning this pattern. School, work, work, work.
Huh?
And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of fun when you retire, like way down the line.
And that mindset, that intense work ethic, it didn't just stay in the U.S.
Oh, no, it packed its bags and went right along with her. Absolutely.
And that's the core conflict she lays out, this deeply held belief.
Yeah, that the only path to the American dream, to success, was through this relentless work ethic. That was the only way she knew.
So there she is, trying to live in Italy, and the biggest culture shock. It wasn't the obvious stuff like language or food.
No, it was confronting her own relationship with rest, how deeply American that relationship was.
That's when she has this big realization. She actually says she was addicted to productivity.
Wow. Yeah. And this genuine belief that if she wasn't actively working on something,
Anything.
she was actually falling behind, losing ground somehow.
You really see it in how she describes watching everyday Italian life unfold. Her neighbors sitting out on their balconies for hours.
In the middle of the day, what she thought of as prime work time.
Or people in cafes just lingering over one espresso forever.
And she said it initially drove her crazy on their behalf, like she felt anxious for them.
Right. That feeling of unease, she calls it, even when she herself had nowhere to be, nothing pressing to do.
It shows how internal that pressure was. It wasn't coming from outside. It was this voice inside saying, do something, be productive.
And it wasn't just a quick adjustment period either. This went on for a while.
For the first 6 years, she says, starting when she was 29.
Yeah.
This feeling of a mini identity crisis.
Like, who am I if I'm not producing something? Her whole self-worth was tangled up in it.
And she even felt it physically. Describes feeling anxious, her mind constantly searching for the next task. It really shows how deep that conditioning runs, doesn't it? Affecting mind and body.
But then things started to shift. The environment itself, the very thing she was sort of fighting against.
It started to gently push back, in a way, or rather pull her in.
Yeah, the world around her in Mormano just wasn't rushing, and she felt it as an invitation almost, like, hey, slow down with us.
And it's fascinating how that happened. It wasn't some big lightning bolt moment.
No.
It was subtle, social. She mentioned it started mainly with other mothers in town.
Constantly inviting her for espresso at the local cafe.
Right, these regular low-key invitations.
And she admits at first she only went to be polite, didn't want to seem rude.
But inside, she felt antsy, sitting there, 10 o'clock in the morning, making small talk.
When her brain was screaming, you should be working. The simple act of not doing felt deeply wrong.
But each time she accepted, each time she sat down with those friends.
She was sort of unknowingly at first practicing letting go.
Exactly. Chipping away at that lifelong habit. It was this slow, gradual process of learning to just be okay with taking a break that wasn't scheduled or earned.
The social aspect seems crucial there, those other women providing that consistent, gentle nudge.
And then comes the real turning point, the deeper transformation.
She mentions that when she first did start to intentionally slow down, the immediate feeling wasn't relief, it was guilt.
Feeling like a failure, she says. Which makes total sense given everything we've discussed.
But then something else happened, something unexpected.
Yeah, that's when she says something strange happened.
Mm.
Instead of the guilt spiraling, she actually started to feel better.
And feeling better kind of opened up space for something she'd always shoved to the bottom of the list.
Self-care, which she admits she had always deprioritized. Now it started to actually become part of her routine.
And the examples she gives are so simple, but powerful in context.
Totally. Like taking walks without a podcast plugged in her ears, not trying to multitask or learn something,
Just walking, being present.
or sitting in the town square. No phone, no book, no agenda, just sitting with her own thoughts.
Things that sound basic, maybe, but for her, they were revolutionary because they lacked that productive output.
And that's how she really came to understand the Italian concept of.
Dolce far niente.
Exactly. The sweetness of doing nothing.
Which sounds lovely, but she's clear it's not about being lazy.
Not at all. She defines it as needing intention, presence. And crucially, this understanding that rest isn't something you have to earn.
Right. It's not a reward for productivity.
It's something you fundamentally need, like air or water. That's a massive shift in thinking.
Huge. And that reframing changed how she measured her own success.
She stresses she's still ambitious. Living in Italy didn't kill her drive.
But the measuring stick changed.
Completely. Happiness, peace of mind, those became the primary metrics, more important than just money.
And she asked that really pointed question in the article.
Yeah. What's the point of having money if you're too stressed, too busy, too depleted to actually enjoy it? Or enjoy it with the people you love?
It hits home. And her final realization, summing it all up.
It's simple, but so profound. She says she finally knows, truly knows, that she is allowed to live her life.
Even when I'm doing absolutely nothing. That acceptance.
So looking back at her journey, you see this incredible arc from that deep-seated anxiety about not doing enough
That guilt tied to rest.
to embracing this completely different rhythm and finding not just relief, but genuine peace and happiness.
Yeah.
And a whole new definition of a successful life.
Yeah, the heart of it really seems to be grasping dolce far niente in that deeper way. Not idleness, but intentional being.
And understanding rest as a basic human need, not some kind of luxury you get after you've burned yourself out working.
It definitely makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
Yep.
About your own relationship with busyness.
Mm-hmm. How much is your sense of self-worth tangled up in always needing to be productive, always on?
It's a challenging question.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. If redefining success for Kershonda meant finding value in doing absolutely nothing sometimes, what might that look like for you? What's one small way you could embrace a little intentional nothingness, maybe even starting today?